Welcome to the Two Ravens podcast, where two people sit down and chat about their minds and thoughts, specifically their unique perspectives on the life that they are living. Today, we're going to be digging into Silas. I believe that's how you say it, right? Before
Correct.
I butcher it for the rest of the interview. How are you
Mhm.
doing today, Silas?
I'm doing well, thank you. I
Mm-hmm.
just finished writing my fourth reel.
Your fourth reel
Yes.
for Instagram or like
Mhm.
Facebook? Okay.
Well, for usually Instagram, but I'm gonna post it on YouTube soon.
Oh, okay. When did you start YouTube?
Well, I haven't even started it just yet. So this fourth video that I found myself making, I said, okay, this is a good one that I think captures where I'm really at. Whereas my previous reels were more like tests.
Okay. That's so much fun. We'll talk more about that. But to start off, skipping the tell me a bit about yourself. This isn't a job interview. This is a podcast. Where did you grow up, and how do you believe that it has impacted your life and where you are today?
Yeah, grew up in Houston in a small neighborhood in the southwest part where my family arrived to that area from El Salvador as they were refugees from a civil war that was happening in the 70s. And I think the way that impacted me was learning how to grow up as a first generation American here through school systems and what I saw on TV to impact this new world where my parents were really busy working a lot to make ends meet so we could thrive here. And I'd say that I got in a lot of trouble in elementary school because it seems that I did well on on intelligence tests like math and other things, and I would get bored. I would talk to my friends in class. So I quickly learned that I think I'm a sociable person. That's definitely an impact. But I got in trouble a lot for that. So it took a while to overcome that type of like tension of like if I finish things on time, I'd get in trouble kind of mentality. Anyways, I moved out of Houston into Austin about 7 years ago. And that was just a major change. I changed careers. I found friends who were more artistic. And so I had this artistic path of playing music and playing rock in garage bands, along with um, being in tech, being a support engineer, being a software developer.
That's Man, you have done it all. So whereabouts in Houston are you from?
Yeah, so it's Sugarland,
Okay.
Richmond
Okay.
area.
Yeah, I lived in Houston for a year. I couldn't do it.
Right. It's so the other part of it is too is just the cultural aspect of it. It's very diverse, and I went to notably. I remember the high school I went to very diverse. In fact, like there was like one white person per class I was in, basically, like one, two, three. And so it did shape just like my taste in culture because a lot of, from what I could tell, Houstonians love rap music, and so that influenced me a lot. And then I also started to realize that some of the lyrics and some of the subjects that were talked about, I think there's pros and cons. But being an impressionable child, I think I picked up on some vices that I've overcome, but definitely influenced my lingo and since then I embrace it sometimes like the macho stuff, um, that type of confidence. Like you can, I find it funny. I'm saying this now that you can view rapping and rhyme use as like a way for you to be a better presenter.
I need to hear more about that. Tell me where was that epitome? Did you first look at rapping like that, or is this like a new development?
That's new.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it now because um, I think of Drake. Okay, I think he's the best rapper alive. And I'm saying that because it's a lot of wordplay, right? And if it's him or if it's a team, it kind of relates to my new venture and yours with writing online. It's just that let's find what's the best and then use it to deliver. And with music, there's a rhythm, there's a cadence you got to use, and then a rapper like Drake uses a tone of voice to be declarative, to be authoritative, right?
Right. Okay. Okay.
And that's the
I
voice we want to
see.
use sometimes in our
Yeah.
copy, etc.
Yeah. No, that's actually that's awesome. Like the personality and everything. That's really cool. So regarding music, is rap your favorite genre, or do you have like a genre that you dig a little more than rap?
The one that's the top of the list is metal.
Okay. What kind of metal?
Okay, so there was a era in the 2010s where, let's say, it came out of the 2000s where there were no solos in popular metal music, which I found strange. Anyways, in the 2010s, bands started infusing what I call post rock with modern metal and with screaming solos and beautiful solos. That's the type of music I was into. Some will call it progressive metal fused with progressive rock.
Okay. Fancy. Did you play that in garage bands, or was there something else you played for garage bands?
Yeah, so this is where we start going to my failures. So how do I say this? So I made attempts to learn because this is very technical musicianship. A lot of the metal I like. So if you're thinking of a band like Dream Theater, that guitarist John Petrucci, these guys went to Berkeley. These guys have this understanding of music that is world class, and they have world class fans and productions. So I would say that I've attempted over the years to pick it up, and it couldn't click. And I think a major reason was that I wasn't sharing it enough. I was really shy about how I would perform, but I did join bands as the first band I joined was as a bassist. So I kind of like threw away my my inclination to be a guitarist, but I just wanted to be in a group. I wanted to be. There was a community I was in Houston at the time, so this was in Houston, and I joined that band, and it went on for about a year and a half.
Oh wow. Okay. When was that? How long ago was that, or is that recent?
No, that was another lifetime ago. That was at the tail end of college,
Okay.
and the funny thing about that is I was also in a raver group, so I was really into EDM,
Okay.
really into punk, and I was a bassist in punk band like 2014. We're talking about 10 years ago, which
Okay.
is awesome to think about. And I just for the that band, I just picked up their Bandcamp, listened to it, had my bass, and just played along. And then when I auditioned, I just just remember what I played, and I was in. So and with the Raver friends in the end of college, I just wrote a thread today about how I walked out of my statistics exam
Okay.
because I pulled up my phone during my class just so I could see what they were up to during my exam. And so that's how like detached I was and really disillusioned I was with college, trying to get a degree. I switched my majors like 3 times. So that was a mess, but I'm glad it happened because I'm talking about it now. Mostly as a warning for people looking to make money in 2024.
Okay. What majors did you have, and did you finish college?
Yeah, I did not finish.
Okay.
And I think I started with biochemical engineering. And so that seemed promising, but it wasn't something I chose. It was something that basically was assigned based on, hey, in your high school class, you graduated number 9 out of 400 something kids. You're smart. Why don't you go to University of Houston to study this degree? And I said, sure, that's fine. In my high school, I was involved in this JROTC program, a military program for high school students. And I was still a bit aimless, even though I had some dreams, but I ignored them at the behest of the family. So I think that's what culminated in me dropping out. I tried to switch into computer science. I didn't understand programming, nor did I really want to, because I played a lot of video games, and I was part of a social fraternity. Um, that took up some time, but they didn't necessarily distract me too much. But And then the last switch I did was to international business. But by then, I was in college for 5 years, and I just had this intuition that like I should just be making money. I don't care about the degree.
Right, 100%. Is that regarding warning? Is Do you recommend college to people, or are you not for the modern education system?
Yeah. Okay. I got to think about this before I really eat my foot or whatever the word is, the phrase. So I know that colleges still have fundamental systems that teenagers can learn to apply in different business projects, for example, engineering. The problem is when students take out loans, like tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. I think even if you're considering that, I think it's already a bad choice. And that possibly eliminates like half the populace from going to college. Because I think that amount of investment could instead be used to just a trade or just starting your own business. Investing 5,000 into your own business to me is way like today make some mistakes along the way is way more valuable, I think, than like $50,000 for 4 years. And then the last thing I'll say is 4 years is a long time right now. It's way too long. AI has done this much in like a year or less.
Hmm.
It's gonna, I think, make more disruptions more frequently. So I don't hate the system. It just seems to be bloated and there's a lot of bureaucracy. So does
Completely
that
agree.
answer? I can get a bit more refined.
I mean,
What do you think?
at the end of the day, the people who don't agree with it aren't your target audience. So it's like, if some people aren't going to agree with that, I guess my thing is like, I'm completely against the modern education system in most ways. I think it fails a lot of our kids, but like doctors need to go to college, of course, so like you can't completely be against it. There's so much into it, but I'm all for polarizing information. Tell me your biggest and baddest feelings on things. I think they're important.
Yeah,
I think opinions are huge.
yeah. And my headline for the thread was, "Are you thinking of switching majors?"
Okay.
So someone like me, and I'm thinking also just if you are thinking of switching majors at all, I think that automatically qualifies you to just get the hell out, just leave,
Right.
because there was something about your original choice that didn't make sense. And if you're gonna switch and you are gonna lose time, unfortunately, right? Especially if you switch completely different from like arts to science or science to arts. Wow, imagine if instead of shuffling papers, you pivoted on a product.
Mm-hmm.
So then you actually had feedback
Right.
on the business you're having.
100%. That kind of reminds me of Dan Coe's like entrepreneurship is the only answer in the modern society. It's very much so what it reminds me of. Wow. Okay. As a kid, was there anything you oddly enjoyed, and if so, do you think that's kind of now translating into what you're doing today?
I oddly enjoyed drawing stick figures and drawing weapons for them because I played a lot of these video games that were fantasy based. And so drawing and sketching, I do that a lot now. My journal's away for the moment, but that's something that is vital to me. Designing either systems for myself, to do lists, or diagrams for some of my actual graphic designs around my brand.
That's really cool. And you say journal. Do you, inside of your journal, do you write plus draw to express yourself?
Yeah, so I'd say if you haven't already, use a sketchpad instead of just a journal with lines
Mm-hmm.
because that amount of freedom enables you to just draw big words, draw circles around words, and in mind map. That's a favorite activity I like, where you have just one word and then you just branch off words. You have an emotion or you have a project you need to do, right? That's a lot of fun. So that's what I do. Draw plus write plus doodle.
That's really cool. That's really interesting. When did you start doing that? Is that a new development as well?
Well, the mind map technique is something I learned actually 2 years ago, and now I can't remember who. As far as a sketch pad goes, I've been doing that since about 2014, so about a decade.
Wow.
I don't think I've purchased a dedicated line planner or book or journal since.
That's really cool. And was that just like a random inkling to get a sketch pad, or did you find it from someone?
Maybe it was someone I met, or maybe a post I saw. Of, I think poetry, because when you look at poetry books, they're sparse. There's a lot of space, right? And then there's like the poem in the center of the page, and I think that appealed to me because I view a lot of what I write as poetry.
Really interesting. I don't. Do you post your poetry on X, or is it more personal to you?
Hmm. Well, I haven't much. I'd say some of my prose is creative enough to be poetry, though I haven't explicitly said, "Here's a poem. Here I'm going to share." Yet, yet that's something that I'm cooking up.
Ooh, cooking up. I love to see what's cooking.
Yeah. Well, I don't have it prepared, but maybe I could share some with you.
Absolutely. I'm so open. I love reading things like that. I think poems, especially, are so underrated and not common anymore. A lot of people don't know how to write poetry outside of like what schools taught us.
Right. The interesting thing is about Instagram is that I do see it as a platform for the poets because X, for some reason, I guess because it has that standard format, maybe it doesn't appeal to them, but on Instagram, they'll take pictures of how they wrote it. And I think that's really appealing to people.
Mm,
And so it's a good place to see that it is thriving in that community.
that's really interesting. And I love that about social media. How like every platform has their own little communities inside of them. Like
Yeah.
X is very different from LinkedIn and vice versa. Regarding like platforms, what platforms are you on or focusing on right
Yeah, I want to be on all of them, but that's after automation in a few more months and possibly hiring some people. So not yet will I be on LinkedIn or or TikTok maybe, but right now it's just X and Instagram, and then I'm gonna throw those reels and videos I make onto YouTube.
now? Okay, interesting. Regarding what you're currently doing, tell me a little bit about Digital Estate Builder. I read your funnel and everything. Beautiful copy, by the way. If you wrote it yourself, you did great. I also love the video. I think that's a very underutilized touch in a lot of people's copy. So tell me a little bit about Digital Estate. What got you started into it? How did you find it? When did you start it?
Yeah, thanks for asking that, and I'm appreciative that you're looking into that. So first of all, Daniel Fazio encouraged me to make this video sales letter, aka VSL. And as far as the builder, it's about helping you start your personal brand or sustain it. And I say I teach you how to build, play, and profit with that brand. And my goal is to get you 30 to 60 days of content of your own ready to go by the end of it. So you have a foundation. And I have strategies to help you make offers, strategies to ideate, to network with others, and to view emails and inboxes as an essential part of this digital estate. So why is it named that? Well, I see that social media is kind of like the shared marketplace in this digital landscape because we use these terms anyways. And so I want to help you reclaim that your website, that home base is something I noticed that a lot of creators don't have. So it's important to have that in your own domain, right? Even the word domain comes from real estate. So I'm bundling all that together, all these concepts to help you understand that your digital estate is essential for your personal brand. That the social media are rented places or rented estates that should point back to your home. And whatever product, message, or service you have there can truly be curated by you.
That's awesome. When did you get started doing that?
Yeah, so I started on that in January after I wrote mm, 12 or 13 newsletters. And I decided, okay, I've been learning a lot about building my personal brand and growing it. And I followed, as we mentioned, Dan Coe's advice of whatever you're doing daily, see if you can package that and make it a service. And so I realized, yeah, I learned a lot of things that people definitely would pay for, save them a lot of pain. That's the point, just saving a lot of pain into bumping and, and either finding problems they didn't know about or just having someone to talk to as well. Because I've had a client where they really didn't know anybody that they could just talk to about their attempts to grow their musicianship lesson, their musicianship education business. So that's when I started in January, and it continued. I think for about 2 months, and I've recorded Loom videos. I have a curriculum. I'm using Teachable, so I learned a lot about building a course. So this is my first course online. It's really exciting.
That is very exciting. And regarding, you said you did newsletters first. How long have you been writing newsletters?
Yeah, that started in October 2023.
Yeah. And who, I know you mentioned Dan, but did anyone else inspire you to start like this whole leveling up process through online business?
Yeah, so there was a few YouTube. There are a few YouTubers when I was in software engineering, when I was developing front end websites. I was actually kind of offline for like 2 years, and one day a client of mine just sent a video of a YouTuber, and then I found like this front end web development community. Shout out to this guy Theo.gg, I believe, or T3.gg. Just this guy, great personality, talks about tech updates, talks about really nerdy stuff, and him and these other characters that stream a lot on Twitch, and they stream to other front end web developers and designers. So it astounded me that, oh wow, there's a community that's just about engineering and design and development, and they're all gamers too, and it's really infused with the gaming community. It's really cool, and so that type of just like education and entertainment was like simmering in my head, and I was thinking to myself, I could be a teacher inside the web development space. That original idea has been around since mm, 8 years or so. That would be a later goal. So yes, as a catalyst in the summer of last year, Danco introducing amazing videos, and one of them was the "You have $100,000 idea stuck in your head." And so that was just his catalyst because he was able to package in about 20 minutes all of these thoughts that I never really journaled, that were just collecting around, and just packaged it. And I said, oh, wow, let me start that newsletter then. And so I bought a course, learned from him. And because I learned it from a course of his, that also inspired me to create a course of mine.
That is so amazing. So I know what you bought his 2 hour writer course.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. What did you think about that?
it is comprehensive and reasonably priced.
I agree with the reasonably priced. I absolutely love that course. Regarding that course, what other book titles, courses, or people do you currently admire where you're at on the journey?
Right. So then let me think. I guess I start with authors, and it appears to me that individuals who choose to be entrepreneurs have this belief about themselves that isn't teachable. And for me, I found that there's spiritual, irreligious, yet moral component to this. And I grew up in a fundamentalist religious kind of household that it had its pros and some cons that I had to deal with. But I found some authors who were able to explain a lot of current circumstances in history, in history of everything. One of them was Ken Wilber, one of them was Don Miguel Ruiz. Ken Wilber wrote A Brief History of Everything, and Don Miguel Ruiz wrote The Four Agreements. And so I think the type of people who are interested in books like that are about consciousness, awareness. There's also Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now, right? That influenced me to even begin to believe that, okay, I can start something on my own because I understand who I am beyond like the societal lens.
Yeah.
And one more book that I really enjoy is called Your Unique Self by Mark Gaffney, because that is a book that to me is the latest in understanding the development of you. Because we often hear, you got to know who you are, know thyself, things like that. And so that's been an informative book.
Interesting. I will have to go back and rewatch this to make sure I get all of the right book titles and everything. When did you read those? Or is that do you reread them, or are those like the books you just went through once?
Oh, yeah, I did reread The Four Agreements like 2 months ago.
That's getting to it. How often?
Yeah, well,
Go ahead.
yeah, the last time I read it was like 7 years ago. The first time I read it, so it was due to just check it out again. And I was reading. I said, "Oh my god, I've held on to these beliefs. I thought they were mine, but they came from the book."
When you that's I think that's the epitome of like everything's recycled. It's like, oh, I that's not mine. That's someone else's. I just stole it.
Yeah, so that's why I don't get too caught up personally. In case people might be thinking this about, we keep saying like Danco, or maybe some other names are going to get brought up. But the fact is, he's recycling some things very well, and he's just synthesizing them such that he is a figure today in this creator economy that's doing very well at just showing us what's important.
No, exactly. I completely agree with you. It's Dan Coe and his ability to iterate and synthesize is it's incredible. What he can take the most simple thing and then make it look all fancy and understandable. It's really inspiring, and I honestly see that in a lot of your writing as well. So I think you're doing like a phenomenal job.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's referenced Ken Wilber as well. Ken today is kind of different as a personality, but his books are really good. And
Okay.
so, um, because I'd say that one of the things he helped me understand is just that everyone has a worldview, and worldviews have different stages of development. So when people you love, like, just have these set of beliefs or have these tensions, about things that you don't vibe with, um, and I say you, I'll start using me. I don't vibe with some family members, for example. Then I just remember, okay, that's the worldview, that's the way they were developed, and like in the history of things, like this is kind of the evolution of some different minds, and I'm not gonna like get bothered by it because it's natural.
Mhm.
Because I used to think this is unnatural, but let that go, and then that helps me, and then I just focus on the audience that is important, like you mentioned earlier, like I'm going to say some extreme beliefs, but some people are going to get it and they'll love it and they'll join my tribe and I'll join theirs. So,
100%. And the way that sounds, is that what ties into your like Gen Z slash millennial traits and desires that you mentioned in the questionnaire? Yeah. Tell me a little bit about that, because I think it's not common that people like. There's so many different stages in how people see the world. And so tell me little bit about what you think about that.
yeah, I found a book called iGen because I was researching, describing algorithms for entrepreneurs, and I wanted to know. how social media was affecting new people, new generations, and the author brought up some data about the traits of these type of people who are getting on social media more often, and I figured that that's important because that's also who I am including in my audience. And one other big thing is that, well, I'm 32. I've had a client who is in high school that is starting an online business, right? And that influenced me to pick up this book and just see what is going on. How is someone already trying to achieve these kinds of results? And I got to know them more. I won't go too much into detail into that. Just the fact that someone is starting that, and then I'm thinking, well, then there's a lot of other teenagers doing this right now, wanting to make money online. And I did in the book showed that more young adults and teenagers are actually insecure about their income. And then I'm pairing that personally in my worldview with AI disruption. And so, yeah, conventional education had success for decades with this like ladder from child to employee through after college in 16 years. But like I mentioned earlier, I'm just not seeing that as like the best option anymore. And so I do want to understand a bit more about Gen Z. I'm a millennial, but yeah, I mean, it's just because, and also just more and more people are getting online, more and more people are new, and are gonna receive potentially mine or yours posts and our thoughts about education and see us as thought leaders.
100%. Yeah, I think flexible and self education, it reminds me a lot of how history repeats itself. And if you go back to some of the most early great leaders, they all self educated and we're slowly going back to that self education phase. And I really enjoy it. And regarding your target audience and everything, have you had difficulties trying to understand the younger generations, or did the book pretty well like cover it for you?
I don't think I have issues yet, and I started the book still. I'm on chapter two, so we'll see what else I will learn. I do have just people on these social media apps that I'm chatting with that so far I understand they want to start a business. So starting a business is a really broad term, and that's fine. I'm going to use that and capture that. And it still seems that the way I talk is appealing. I'll pivot as necessary, but I don't think I've encountered major issues yet.
Yeah, for sure. What's your like long term goal? However long term you think. I think in terms of 5 years, but some people don't think that. Where do you want to take your digital estate, as you say? Where do you want to take that?
Yeah, this digital estate, it's going to expand. So let's say in a year, it should expand to YouTube and long term format where I use my newsletters as scripts for my videos. And then about 3 years is when I expect the income it, to be substantial enough to replace my other income making activities now. And at that 3 year mark, have one or two more major courses developed and have a ton of offers. I'm making another one right now, and offers could include league magnets or free ebooks or anything of that sort. And in 10 years, so 10 years is 2034, and that's it's difficult to imagine what things will be like in some ways, but I think I would say communicating and writing. So I would still be on my newsletter. I would still be um, informing people about reality and educating them how I can. Though I think at that mark there will be some kind of major software project I would be involved in. Given my background, I have a feeling I'll just bump into the kind of people that want to build something into a legitimate company. And I've seen this with, for example, like Alex Ramosi or Dan Coe, just actually building kind of a major company. So that's where I see these things going for me.
Fancy. So regarding your current money making methods, I think we've talked about them, but tell me, when did you start making money? Regarding, were you a waiter at 14 years old, and like take me on your little journey of where you're currently at now.
Oh yeah, like employment. I mean, I've had odd jobs. I had jobs scooping poo as a kennel technician for a dog daycare called Bed and Biscuits. That was exciting. That was in Houston. Yeah,
Okay.
I liked. And that was during college. I've worked at Urban Outfitters. I've I when I dropped out, I got something called A+ certification because I was still determined to use my knowledge to get a job in IT. So I started out as IT help desk, and then that was like in 2015. So for the next 7 years, I went from IT help desk, moved to Austin, found myself as a QA engineer for a software company, and then found myself in support engineer positions. And I had plenty of tangents on the way, but for that technical career, I ended up getting promoted in a major SaaS company that had infrastructure monitoring software. Became a solutions engineer, and I went to double click on that as that was a role where 50% of it was making presentations on call like this with clients over 3 weeks to 3 months, rolling out our software for them. And I felt really at home in that space, speaking, making sure everyone got their say. And I had a project manager that was really useful. And and the other 50% was actually coding on a basic level. And I grew to love the coding part, so I pivoted and became a freelancer and started developing front end websites. And a lot of that was self taught. So none of this was degree based. It was all just certifications or YouTube or places like Team Treehouse. So shout out to them. They're a great learning platform. So I walked away from that though, and because I found that the kind of work I was doing was being replaced in a sense. I That was last year in October. I got so enamored with writing. That's all I want to do, and building things and solving problems. And I haven't generated like a substantial income. So I also like being an extroverted kind of guy. So I decided, okay, I'm going to treat this like I'm going to New York or Hollywood as an actor and work in a restaurant, wait some tables, make some cash. I cut down a lot of expenses. So I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about minimalism. And then, yeah, I enjoy going to work. This is one of my jobs is waiting tables. So doing that and then coming back to here, I can leave work at work. That's great. That I haven't done that in a long time. Or getting up like at 6 or 7 a.m. because I had clients in like Japan or Italy. It's cool, like when you think about it, but there are just these caveats. And then I just unfortunately had clients who themselves had issues with marketing and selling, and they didn't use media, social media, or other platforms to promote themselves. So like I saw that being a problem. So again, what I want to emphasize is that I really want to know what it's like to communicate, to market myself, to upsell. So one of these jobs helps with that, and I want to really practice this online, and that's what I've been doing with my digital estate.
Yeah, that's absolutely awesome. So on that topic, first of all, after this, you're gonna have to tell me where you work because I will come visit. I love food.
It's so good.
Okay, I'm so down. we'll ask that. What is your favorite food? What's your favorite type of food?
Oh, okay. So just on the most basic level, it is ramen.
Wow.
Yeah, ramen, the broth, the noodles, because it has everything. It's a bit of everything: the carbs, the protein, and then like the porks or beef, whatever. And then you can customize, and then they have just these different vegetables. So I just love that that type of cuisine has like different vegetables are not typical in a Western diet. So the next, okay, well, okay, it is barbecue. It is funny because where I work at, it's Mexican Oaxacan food, but barbecue is definitely just also just it's amazing. So what about you?
What about me, man? I have been on I've eaten chicken religiously for the last like 3 years, gym bro style. I can do anything with chicken. I love chicken so much. Like my partner has been making chicken wings, and I don't know why, but there's just something about chicken, man. I had
Yes.
It's so good. It's so
Well,
stupid, but
well, what specifically do they do with the wings? Is it what do they season it with?
oh,
Or
she found a like a recipe the other day where it's got like something to like slap your mama in it, and then it's got like all the
yeah,
good stuff in it. And I was like, oh, this is by far the best, and it's cooked in the oven too, so it doesn't have all the extra fat in it from like deep frying and everything.
right.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah,
I would have to say my next one would be a good steak. I'm from the north, and so we would always have steak or like fish fries was also a big thing. Fried fish is just so good.
yeah. I know. I do love fried fish. I worked at a in Houston in a restaurant that was a crawfish food truck, but converted into an actual store, brick and mortar, and they had these po' boys that were just bomb with fried tilapia, fried shrimp. You know,
Yeah,
here we are talking about food.
talking about food. I'm so big into food though. I think moving down to the south has been like my favorite thing because being up north, like everything's pretty boring. I didn't have my first sushi until I was 16. Like I didn't
Wow.
I didn't have anything fancy, and so like when you say tilapia, I'm talking like walleye and perch, which is something a lot of people in the south never even heard of.
No,
And
no.
so yeah, it's a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, I think these different types of experiences, eating different cuisines, is really human. I'll say that as just like I understand why people are foodies. I am not hating on that, and it's fun to go out to different places because it's in a sense, especially with small business restaurants, it's kind of like walking to a home, right? Because that chef has put a ton of love in like thought into like what should the menu be because that's what I'm starting to realize and what's because I love just learning from the different environments I'm in. So the chefs where I'm at, they put a lot of thought into that menu and making sure it's as authentic as possible and things of that sort. So yeah, I just love where the small businesses can thrive that do that. You know.
Yeah, I think that's why I've loved Austin so much too. Is because there's so many small businesses in Austin, and it's so much fun to go around downtown Austin and just see everyone's little fun thing that they were like, I'm gonna do this, and it's really enjoyable.
Yeah. So with regards to small business, I would want to 10 or 20 years. We're talking is to own some physical space, and I would love that space to be some type of community center for artists of any sort. At first, I was thinking musicians, and I think that's how I'll start. Musicians of any genre and have rehearsal rooms for them and also have a classroom for them. So it could be like kind of like Guitar Center type of thing, but there's also a venue. And I would like that venue to be a place for speakers and writers and poets to be at, right? Kind of like what we were talking about earlier. And just the one thing I noticed that is a waste is that a lot of these clubs are closed from morning until night, and then they open at night. And I just see that as just like it's wasted potential. I think a more conscious community would absolutely use a venue or a bar or a club's space in the daytime. You know,
No,
there'll be
100%.
some extra maintenance, but I'm just like, it's if there's a venue, why not make it available as a practice space? It's insane. I'm just like, bro, you're
100%.
just losing community, you're losing money, you're losing brand.
Yeah. That actually reminds me when I was in Florida this past week, there was Club La Velas or something. It was the largest nightclub in the Western world, I think. It held 6,000 people, which is insane to think about. It has pool in it, multiple floors, multiple entrances, and it was open for 12 hours every night. And like you said, that wasted space, but it's closed down now. And me and my partner were like, imagine one owning that real estate, and two, like during the cold months, it can be an amazing event space. Like, and so I'm right there with you. If you ever want a business partner, you
Yeah,
volunteer. I love that idea. I also think it's artists commonly, untraditional artists, I will say, commonly don't get a space to like express themselves or host
yeah,
themselves. Not, I mean, not that I've seen at least, but yeah, I'm gonna hold you to that in 10 to 20 years.
yeah. Oh wow, where will we be?
I
It'll be
know
great.
it's
I look forward
terrifying.
to that.
I even look back in like the past 3 months, and I'm like, oh boy, this is
Yeah, who's that?
I'm like, this is gonna be interesting. But I mean, I also haven't had much free time. I mean, I'm free time is in not being under my parents' roof. So
Right.
yeah,
Well, okay. Yeah, what is your free time like these days?
these days I do a lot of writing. I've done a deep dive the past 3 months into just online writing. It kind of started like a year ago, and I got into Legendary Marketer. It's like an affiliate marketing program, and I hated it. It was so bad, but they had a copywriting portion, and I was like, oh, like, this is so cool. I can just write words for people, and then it's been like downhill from there. I've just consumed everything writing. So yeah, that's my entire free time, and then I also have a day job, but that's just the day job.
Yeah. Yeah, my free time, one of the things I still do is some nature stuff. I visited the pool, the Barton Springs pool here, um, as it's a good time in Austin to in this window before it gets absurdly humid and hot in the next couple of months. Um, I do. I had a rule for a couple of months while I was building the offer. I was telling myself, I'm not going to watch any shows or any type of media. I lived to that rule, so now I'm like spending about 30 minutes to an hour watching something because I do start to realize like, okay, this is actually good. Or I read a book, a fiction book, right? Something that is not about trying to be somebody, instead being somebody,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm just being a person who enjoys reading science fiction right now. I'm reading a book. Well, I was reading Three Body Problem, an amazing science fiction book with aliens and how we react to these aliens. It's one of the books where I just think everybody should read because I don't think I've read a book that treats the interaction between humans and aliens this way. Um, and it turns out it's on Netflix. They adapted it.
Interesting.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
And I could go on about that, but that's some of my free time, I think, because I'm just again, which you reminded me is of what in the past that I really enjoy, and it was a lot of watching shows and playing video games. Um, the video game portion, I actually would like to get a new rig so I can game on a PC again like the old days.
Uh-huh.
There's just nothing like having a computer while you're gaming because you can open up windows and stuff and just be
It's
super focused
yeah.
and not to get up. Much different than a console. So yeah, that's been my free time these days, and going on walks. And usually on walks, I do listen to something to help me understand and study something too.
Yeah.
But man, that has changed. That's been a recent development.
Okay. We'll have to talk about that on the next podcast, man. This has been
Yes.
a banger. I could keep talking. I love hopping on these podcasts because I'm like, oh no, like is are we gonna be able to talk? And then we end up just like going at it for an hour, and I'm like, oh, time's up. No. But thank you so much for coming on. One more question, which is, what is one thought or memory that sits with you that you would like to leave for your audience?
Do what you love.
That's beautiful. That's probably one of my favorites right there. Awesome. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Silas, for coming on.
Thank you, Bryn.